Number 10. Reaching for distractions automatically. Before you even realize you're uncomfortable, your hand has already moved. The phone is unlocked. The app is open. The scroll has begun. Not because you're curious, not because you're joyful, but because your mind has learned a shortcut. Escape first, feel later. This is not random, it's conditioning. Every time a moment of uncertainty, boredom, or emotional friction appears, your brain whispers, "Remove this." And the fastest way to remove it is stimulation, a notification, a reel, a message, something that interrupts the rising discomfort before it fully forms. Over time, the gap between discomfort and distraction shrinks to almost zero. You no longer choose to escape. You reflexively do it. What makes this powerful is that it feels harmless. You tell yourself you're just checking something, just filling time, just taking a break. But beneath that surface behavior, a pattern is being reinforced. Internal tension is intolerable. Instead of sitting with a thought, you swipe it away. Instead of observing an emotion, you mute it. Instead of allowing boredom to stretch into creativity, you anesthetize it. The danger isn't the distraction itself, it's the automation. When escape becomes automatic, awareness disappears. You stop noticing the subtle signals your body sends, the restlessness, the dissatisfaction, the quiet loneliness. Those signals are information, but distraction converts information into noise, and slowly something shifts. You don't feel more pleasure, you simply feel less discomfort. Your days become filled but not fulfilled, stimulated but not satisfied. The mind begins to crave interruption the way a smoker craves a cigarette, not for joy but for relief. Here's the unsettling truth. The urge to distract yourself is often the doorway to something meaningful, a realization, a creative idea, a buried emotion asking to be understood. But if you never pause long enough to face it, you never cross that threshold. The next time your hand moves without permission, notice it. That split second before the scroll begins. That is where your freedom lives. Number 9. Ending discomfort instead of building satisfaction. The moment something feels hard, your system switches into emergency mode. Not physical danger, psychological discomfort. A challenging task, an awkward conversation, a lingering doubt about your own ability. Instead of asking, "How do I grow through this?" your mind asks, "How do I end this?" That shift changes everything. Real satisfaction is slow. It is built layer by layer through effort, patience, and friction. But discomfort is immediate, and your brain, wired for efficiency, prioritizes immediate relief over long-term fulfillment. So when a project becomes mentally heavy, you switch tabs. When a workout starts burning, you check your phone. When learning gets confusing, you abandon it for something easier. The goal quietly transforms from progress to escape. At first, this seems practical. Why sit in frustration when you can feel better instantly? But here's the cost. By ending discomfort prematurely, you never reach the point where discomfort turns into competence. There is a phase in every meaningful pursuit where it feels awkward, draining, and unrewarding. That phase is not a sign to stop. It is the bridge to mastery. Yet your mind has been trained to demolish the bridge the moment it feels unstable. Over time, you begin confusing relief with achievement. Finishing a difficult conversation feels stressful, so you avoid it and feel calm. That calm feels like success. Avoiding the gym feels easier. That ease feels like a win. But ease is not satisfaction. It is simply the absence of tension. True satisfaction has weight. It carries the memory of resistance. When you build something, improve something, endure something, your nervous system records the effort. That record becomes pride, confidence, depth. Relief, on the other hand, leaves no imprint. It fades as quickly as it arrives, demanding to be chased again. The more you train yourself to end discomfort instead of transform it, the more fragile your tolerance becomes. Small challenges start feeling overwhelming. Growth feels threatening. You begin living in a narrow comfort zone, mistaking its boundaries for safety. But satisfaction does not live inside comfort. It waits on the other side of sustained effort. The question is not how fast you can silence discomfort. The question is whether you can stay long enough to let it evolve into something stronger. Number 8. Seeking numbness over happiness. You don't actually chase happiness as much as you think. What you chase is quiet, not joy, not aliveness. just the absence of friction. A muted state where nothing hurts, nothing demands, nothing disturbs you. Numbness is subtle. It doesn't announce itself. It feels like neutrality, like stability, like being fine. You move through your day, respond when spoken to, complete tasks, consume content, sleep. On the outside, everything appears functional, but inside, the emotional spectrum has flattened. Highs are rare, lows are avoided. Everything settles into a dull, manageable gray. Happiness requires vulnerability. To feel real joy, you must also risk disappointment. To feel connection, you must risk rejection. To feel passion, you must risk failure. Your mind, addicted to escape, learns that numbness is safer. If you don't fully invest, you can't fully lose. If you don't care deeply, you can't be deeply hurt. So you trade intensity for predictability. Digital stimulation makes this easier. Endless scrolling provides micro-hits of novelty that distract you without demanding emotional commitment. You laugh briefly, react briefly, then move on. Nothing lingers. Nothing penetrates. It's emotional fast food, quick, forgettable, sufficient enough to keep you from feeling empty, but never nourishing enough to make you feel alive. Over time, numbness starts to feel normal. You tell yourself you're just tired, just busy, just practical. But there's a difference between peace and dullness. Peace feels grounded and aware. Numbness feels distant and detached. One expands you quietly, the other shrinks you invisibly. The tragedy is that numbness protects you from pain, but it also blocks joy. The same shield that guards against heartbreak prevents awe. The same wall that keeps out anxiety keeps out excitement. You become insulated from both suffering and meaning. And then something strange happens. You stop remembering what genuine happiness felt like. Not the loud, exaggerated version, but the simple, deep warmth of being fully present in a moment. If you're honest, the real question isn't whether you want happiness. It's whether you're willing to feel again, even when feeling includes discomfort. Number 7, choosing relief over meaning. There's a quiet decision you make dozens of times a day, and you rarely notice it. Not a dramatic choice, not a life-altering crossroads, just a subtle turn toward what feels lighter instead of what feels significant. Meaning is heavy. It asks for commitment. It demands patience. It requires you to stay when things are unclear and continue when results are invisible. Relief, on the other hand, is immediate. It promises comfort now. No long-term investment, no emotional risk, just a quick reduction in tension. When faced with a difficult conversation that could deepen a relationship, relief says, avoid it. When confronted with work that could expand your skill, relief says, do the easy task instead. When you sense a calling that would stretch you, relief whispers, later, not today, and the mind listens. Relief feels good in the short term because it lowers pressure. Your nervous system relaxes, your thoughts quiet. You experience a momentary sense of control. But meaning does something different. It doesn't always reduce pressure immediately. Sometimes it increases it. It challenges your identity. It exposes your insecurities. It forces growth. That is why meaning feels uncomfortable at first. The problem begins when your brain starts measuring success by how calm you feel rather than how aligned you are. You begin prioritizing peace over purpose. You design your days around minimizing friction instead of maximizing depth. Slowly, your life becomes easier to manage but harder to respect. Meaning leaves a trace. It changes you. Even when it exhausts you, it strengthens you. Relief leaves nothing behind except the need for more relief. 3. It's a loop. Escape, soothe, repeat. Meaning is a path. Commit, endure, transform. If you look closely, the moments you're most proud of were not the moments that felt easiest. They were the moments that demanded something from you. Sacrifice, courage, persistence. The addictive part of relief is that it disguises itself as self-care, and sometimes it is. But when relief becomes your primary compass, you drift away from the very experiences that make life feel substantial. The deeper question is uncomfortable. Are you building a life that feels meaningful or just one that feels manageable? Number 6. Avoiding effort that doesn't soothe. The moment effort stops feeling comforting, you start negotiating with it. You tell yourself you'll return later, that you're not in the right mood, that you need the perfect environment. But the truth is simpler. The effort no longer soothes you, so your mind rejects it. Some effort feels good because it gives instant feedback, cleaning your space, organizing files, answering messages. These create visible progress. They calm you. They reduce surface-level chaos. But the deeper efforts, the ones that reshape you, are different. Learning a difficult skill, building something uncertain, confronting a personal flaw. These do not soothe. They destabilize. Your brain prefers effort that lowers anxiety, not effort that increases capacity. So you gravitate toward tasks that make you feel productive without making you grow. You stay busy. You check boxes. You optimize minor details. All the while, the work that truly matters waits in the background because it feels uncomfortable, ambiguous, or emotionally exposing. Effort that doesn't soothe feels threatening because it stretches your self-image. When you try something new, you risk incompetence. When you pursue something meaningful, you risk failure. When you challenge your patterns, you risk seeing parts of yourself you've avoided. That kind of effort doesn't provide instant reassurance. It provides friction, and friction is exactly what your escape-driven mind wants to eliminate. But here's the paradox. Soothing effort maintains who you are. Discomforting effort transforms who you are. One protects your current identity. The other expands it. The longer you avoid unsatisfying effort, the more your growth plateaus. You remain capable but stagnant. Over time, you may start believing you lack discipline or motivation. In reality, you've simply trained yourself to associate effort with comfort, and growth rarely feels comfortable in its early stages. It feels messy, uncertain, slow. The question isn't whether you can work hard. It's whether you can tolerate effort that doesn't immediately reward or calm you. Because the efforts that soothe will keep you stable, but the efforts that unsettle will make you evolve. Number 5. Using content to quiet thought. The silence between two thoughts used to be a space. Now it feels like a threat. The moment your mind begins to wander inward, you reach outward, toward a screen, a video, a podcast, anything that fills the gap before your own thinking grows too loud. Content has become a sedative, not because information is harmful, not because entertainment is wrong, but because of the intention behind it. You don't always press play out of curiosity. You press play to prevent something, a memory, an unresolved question, a flicker of doubt about your direction. Instead of allowing thoughts to surface and organize themselves, you drown them in noise. It feels productive. You're learning, staying updated, being informed. But constant input leaves no room for integration. Your mind becomes a receiver, never a processor. Insight requires stillness. Clarity requires space. When every quiet moment is filled, your inner voice weakens. There's a difference between enjoying content and using it as anesthesia. When you use it to quiet thought, you begin fearing your own mental depth. You become uncomfortable with long walks without headphones, unsettled in rooms without background sound, restless when nothing is happening. Silence starts to feel like exposure, as if without noise, something fragile inside you might break open. But what would actually happen if you let the silence stay? Unprocessed emotions would rise, creative ideas would connect, subtle anxieties would reveal their roots. You might realize things about your life that distraction has been protecting you from seeing, and that realization is precisely what your escape-driven mind tries to avoid. Over time, constant consumption fragments your attention. You lose the ability to sit with a single thought long enough to deepen it. Reflection becomes rare. Your inner world shrinks while your external inputs multiply. The irony is that the answers you're searching for in endless content often exist within you, but they require quiet to emerge. If silence feels uncomfortable, it may not be because it's empty. It may be because it's honest. Number 4. Treating silence as threat. Notice what happens when everything goes quiet. No notifications, no voices, no background hum. Just you and the room. For a few seconds, it feels peaceful, and then something shifts. Restlessness creeps in. Your body tightens. Your mind starts searching for something, anything, to break the stillness. Silence should feel neutral. Instead, it feels unsafe. Why? Because silence removes your distractions, and without distractions, you are left with yourself, your unfinished thoughts, your unresolved emotions, your hidden fears. In noise, they blur. In silence, they sharpen. When the mind is addicted to escape, silence becomes exposure. You begin to interpret stillness as a problem that needs solving. You turn on music while working, a video while eating, a podcast while walking. Even sleep becomes accompanied by sound. It's not that you dislike quiet. It's that quiet feels like a mirror, and mirrors reveal what you've been avoiding. There is a subtle anxiety beneath this habit, the fear that if you sit too long without stimulation, something uncomfortable will surface. A regret, a sense of dissatisfaction, a question about whether you're living aligned with your values. Silence doesn't create these things, it uncovers them, and that is precisely why it feels threatening. But silence is not your enemy. It is a diagnostic tool. It shows you the state of your inner world without distortion. If your thoughts race in silence, that's information. If you feel emptiness in silence, that's information. If you feel peace, that too is information. The tragedy is that by constantly escaping silence, you weaken your tolerance for introspection. You become dependent on external sound to regulate your internal state. And when silence inevitably arrives, during loss, during transition, during uncertainty, you find yourself unprepared. Silence is uncomfortable not because it harms you, but because it asks you to confront what noise has been covering. The question is simple but difficult. Can you sit in a quiet room without needing to run? Number 3. Escaping boredom instantly. Boredom used to be a doorway. Now it's treated like an emergency. The second a task slows down, a conversation pauses, or a line takes too long, your fingers reach for stimulation. You don't even label it boredom anymore. You just feel a slight drop in excitement and respond with instant replacement. Scroll, switch, swipe, refresh. Boredom feels intolerable because your brain has been conditioned to expect constant novelty. When stimulation dips, dopamine drops. That drop registers as discomfort, not pain, not danger, just a subtle emptiness that your system interprets as something to fix immediately. So you fix it. But boredom isn't a flaw in experience, it's a transitional state. It's what happens when your mind finishes consuming and hasn't yet begun creating. It's the mental space where imagination, reflection, and long-form thinking are supposed to emerge. The problem is that boredom requires patience, and patience feels like deprivation in a world of instant access. When you eliminate boredom instantly, you eliminate incubation. You never give your thoughts time to stretch beyond the obvious. You never allow your curiosity to deepen. Instead, your attention becomes fragmented into microbursts of shallow engagement. Over time, your tolerance for stillness shrinks. Ordinary moments feel insufficient. Simple tasks feel unbearable. You start needing constant background stimulation just to complete basic activities. The baseline of excitement rises so high that normal life begins to feel dull. But dullness is not the enemy. Chronic overstimulation is. Boredom is the mind recalibrating. It is the pause before insight. It is the silence before originality. Many of your most creative ideas would surface only if you resisted the urge to anesthetize that temporary void. Escaping boredom feels productive because it keeps you engaged, but it may also be keeping you surface level. The next time boredom appears, instead of running, stay. Notice the urge to escape. Feel it without acting on it. That discomfort may not be something to eliminate. It may be something to explore. Number 2, confusing calm with emptiness. There is a state you often mistake for peace. It feels quiet, it feels flat, it feels manageable. You tell yourself you're calm now, balanced, mature. But if you look closely, something is missing. Not chaos, not drama, meaning. Calm and emptiness can look identical from the outside. Both lack turbulence. Both appear stable, but internally, they are completely different. Calm is grounded awareness. Emptiness is emotional withdrawal. Calm allows you to feel without being overwhelmed. Emptiness prevents you from feeling at all. When your mind becomes addicted to escape, it begins prioritizing low-intensity states. High emotion feels risky. Deep excitement feels destabilizing. Strong desire feels dangerous, so you unconsciously dial everything down. You smooth out your reactions, you mute your passions, you reduce your expectations. Life becomes easier to regulate, but regulation without engagement becomes detachment. You may notice you don't get as upset as you used to, but you also don't get as thrilled. You don't argue intensely, but you also don't love intensely. You feel composed, but not connected. This neutrality starts to feel like maturity, like growth. In reality, it may be protective numbing disguised as control. True calm has depth. It coexists with emotion. You can feel joy without losing yourself. Feel sadness without collapsing. Emptiness, on the other hand, feels like standing outside your own life, observing instead of participating. The danger of confusing the two is that you stop seeking vitality. You aim only to avoid disturbance. Your standard becomes nothing hurts rather than this feels meaningful. And over time, your world shrinks to what is safe, predictable, and emotionally neutral. But humans are not designed for neutrality. You are designed for aliveness. If your calm feels colorless, if your peace feels hollow, it may not be peace at all. It may be your mind choosing emptiness, because emptiness is easier to manage than intensity. The question is uncomfortable. Are you truly at peace, or have you simply turned the volume of your life down? Number 1. Forgetting what enjoyment feels like. There was a time when enjoyment didn't need analysis. You didn't measure it. You didn't optimize it. You simply felt it. A laugh that lingered. A moment that stretched. A task that absorbed you so completely that time dissolved. Now, enjoyment feels distant. Not impossible, just unfamiliar. When the mind becomes addicted to escape, it stops seeking depth and starts seeking interruption. Real enjoyment requires immersion. It asks for your full attention. It grows slowly as you engage with something meaningful. But interruption fragments attention. It keeps you skimming the surface of experience, never sinking into it. Over time, this creates a subtle amnesia. You remember being entertained. You remember being distracted. But true enjoyment, the kind that leaves warmth in your chest, becomes harder to recall. You begin confusing stimulation with pleasure. If something doesn't excite instantly, you abandon it. If it doesn't spike emotion, you assume it isn't worth continuing. But enjoyment isn't always loud. Sometimes it is quiet focus. Sometimes it is gradual mastery. Sometimes it is presence with another person without the need to check your phone. These forms of enjoyment don't compete well with instant gratification. They unfold slowly, and your escape-trained mind struggles to stay long enough to experience them. Another shift happens beneath the surface. When you constantly seek relief, you lose sensitivity. Just as a loud environment dulls hearing, constant stimulation dulls pleasure. What once felt satisfying now feels ordinary. You raise the intensity, searching for a stronger hit. But intensity is not the same as enjoyment. It's just volume. Enjoyment lives in depth, not speed. If you cannot remember the last time you felt fully absorbed in something, that is not a personality flaw. It is a pattern built from choosing interruption over immersion, relief over engagement. The reclaiming of enjoyment is not dramatic. It begins quietly, by staying with an activity a little longer, by resisting the urge to switch, by allowing boredom to transform into curiosity, by letting silence stretch into awareness. Your mind may be addicted to escape, but it is not broken. It can relearn how to savor, how to focus, how to feel. The real question is not whether enjoyment still exists. It is whether you are willing to slow down enough to feel it again.